Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show we have a talk about a Linux project, such as a distribution, desktop environment, application. We also chat about news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I've got Ben, Eris, Jinda, Mark, Dale, Eric, and Matt. And Matt is a new face here to Linux Saloon, so welcome.
Yep.
How is everybody?
Excellent.
Pretty good.
Good deal. So be sure to do the straw poll. If you have tried out Arch Labs, or even if you haven't tried it, and you just don't want to try it, you can check that as well. So there's a link in the chat. Yes, Archcraft. How has Archcraft... Did I say Arch something else? I keep thinking
Arch Labs.
You know what? I tell you what. So somebody should be fired.
That's an honest mistake.
I'm turning this car around right now.
Archcraft. Well, I had to fix it. So it's fine in the notes. I did it wrong on the YouTube. I fixed that beforehand. And then for whatever reason, I keep hearing labs in my head. Bunsen Labs is another distribution. Archcraft. Yeah. Archcraft. Okay, I got to say it a few times, Archcraft. Anyway, so on the docket for today, it's even written down right there, and I still can't say it. On the docket for today, we're going to go over that straw poll on Archcraft. Then we're going to talk about our experiences with Archcraft. Check what's on the menu for next week. Do a community free pour where we'll talk to Ben about something he's doing. He told me, and I didn't write it down, so we'll get to it, Ben. And then do
Linux from scratch with Pacman.
There we go. Linux from scratch with Pacman. That sounds very painful on two levels already.
It was, believe me.
I don't doubt it at all. And then we'll do our last call. But first, what have you been doing in Linux? And I probably should have asked somebody ahead of time, and I totally biffed that. So I will go ahead, unless someone has something they want to throw in there.
Okay. I've been using Fedora on my main laptop as well as my desktop for better part of a month now, which I use my laptop pretty much all day, every day, and then my desktop, a few times a week. And it's been absolutely fine. I've had zero issues. I've had none of the weird sort of security stuff or sort of like esoteric Red Hat-ish kind of like stuff that I've had in the past with Fedora. It's just been really very smooth, and using DNF along with Flatpak, I've had all of the software that I need, and it's been really very smooth. The graphics on my laptop, the hybrid NVIDIA graphics, have been very good. So yeah, I mean, I've just really just had a very pleasant and carefree, easy experience with it, which has been never been true before when I've used Fedora. So I know that they've put a lot of effort into making it a little more straightforward to use some of those external repositories and things like RPM Fusion, and they've really done a great job. It's been not only easy to use, but just like no issues, and actually pleasurable to use something different. I always use Ubuntu or Debian based or Arch based. That's just been my history for the better part of a decade, and even going back further than that. But I mean, in the last sort of concentrated use, I've tried Fedora off and on, and just could never get it to be the way I wanted it to be. And I don't think there could be a more positive sort of outcome for me than it was just frictionless, and everything that I needed to do, I could do. I didn't have to fight against anything. There was no unnecessary or difficult sort of hacking around things. And that was always my experience before. So kudos to whoever's been focusing on making Fedora an easier distro to use. I know that they don't necessarily try to appeal to the layperson. They're really going after more of like a developer type person, or someone who's a little more skilled technically. I guess. But even those people don't want to spend, countless hours trying to get things working the right way. So, yeah, it's been a great experience. So there you go.
How have you? What would you say your experience was in the installation process? Do you think the Anaconda was a good experience for you?
Yeah, because I dual boot on this system, so I had to actually do a custom uh, partitioning and sort of set all that up and share the EFI partition and share the data partition. And so like I agree that Anaconda can be a little weird because of like the buttons are in different corners and like it doesn't seem to follow a very straightforward sort of UX UI principle that a lot of installers are just so sort of straightforward, like that button's always there because that's where you put a button, not in the top left corner. And so it's always been my beef with Anaconda, but no, the advanced stuff of laying out the partitions worked just fine. And then the post installation, so they do that vendor install, I guess they call it, where you don't put in your login information and stuff. You select, your location and sort of all that sort of stuff, your language, but you don't, after it installs and reboots, then you
Right.
input your information. And that's only true of Workstation. All the spins actually use, I think, Calamares instead of Anaconda. So, but yeah, that was fine. Reboot, and they have a nice, it's really a GNOME and Fedora because they're so closely aligned. GNOME itself has done such a nice job of like the onboarding with the welcome screen and, here's the 8 steps to kind of get set up, your online accounts. What do you want? Location services enabled, that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then you're just left with a, clean vanilla install of GNOME. And, I put my 3 or 4 extensions, installed those and moved my browser data over and just basic stuff like that. And yeah, that was it. And since then, yeah, I've just had no issues with, in the past, I had a hard time getting software. Sometimes I would have a hard time, getting a certain package. And I think for a large part, Flatpak has sort of helped me with that. Flatpak. And again, they are very, Flatpak centric with, it's as is GNOME. So sort of Fedora. If you're into GNOME, Fedora is a really good distro for that because they're all so closely aligned.
Right.
So
that's really good news. And I think the next question that I would have, and I think probably it's on everybody's mind, is: are you ready to try Silverblue, an immutable version of Fedora?
I'm actually, I'm softening my position on that a little bit. I think that they are going to make it where it becomes a little more just easier to use. When I don't have to think about the fact that it's immutable, like no one that's using a cell phone, a smartphone understands what immutable means because they don't have to, right? There's the core system itself that's giving them all of the basic structure and underlying services, and then you put apps on top of it and you use it, and and that's it. And I think they're going to, within the next few years, even sooner maybe, get to the point where immutable is that easy on the Linux desktop, and just makes sense because it works that well. For right now, it feels like a tech exercise. It's sort of a proof of concept in a lot of ways, and I know it works, and Silverblue's been around for a while and that sort of thing, but vanilla OS and there's some new players that I think are pushing the boundaries of usability. I don't think Silverblue was ever really intended to be like a mass market product, whereas something like, is it Easy OS is the other one?
Micro OS.
Like
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So yeah, I think there's just going to be, and also I think with the prevalence of ARM devices, I think it starts to make more sense with immutable systems on maybe some of these ARM devices. You get a good image that's being produced for that device, and you really don't have a lot of reason to mess around with the,
that's a good
root
point.
system.
Yeah, actually, that right there is pretty compelling when you think about it, because if you can actually build these immutable images for the different chipsets and whatnot, that would actually solve a lot of the ARM headache that exists today.
I could see the hardware manufacturers who are relying now on third parties to create, compatible systems. Manjaro is being pushed, by a lot of manufacturers, and I could see them having snapshots and images that you could very easily just deploy and support, versus now, it could be anywhere. It could be anything, to support those would be very difficult. Yeah.
Well, very cool.
I think we'll get there. Yeah.
I'll be interested in seeing how this goes for you, following up, because, I think when you jump to a distribution, there's kind of like the honeymoon phase of sorts, where things are great, and then after a few updates and whatnot, then sometimes things can go a little sideways. So sometimes.
Yeah, and I agree. And also just the sort of longevity of, like, after that honeymoon period, and am I going to run into something eventually that is the showstopper? I mean, so far all of the software and everything I've needed has been either available as an RPM or a Flatpak, and it could get to the point where there's some critical thing I can't do, but that really hasn't been the case recently, in the last year at least, that I can think of on most systems. So for now, it's great. I'm really happy with it. I think the upgrade process is another thing that could be a trick, right? I've heard that going between versions of Fedora can be tricky, and I don't know, not having done that, if it is better than it had been, if those are now unwarranted claims, or if I'm going to have difficulties. So
yeah,
I have to see.
I haven't had any troubles with the Fedora upgrades. Those have always seemed to have gone well, the ones that I have done. So that's not been a problem for me. It's not since, like, I think 2018 onward, it's been pretty decent. So I don't know how it is in this last one, but I think that I can't imagine it going backwards. I mean, maybe.
Yeah. Well, maybe that they did just fix. I probably am thinking back into, like, the 20 series or early 30 series, maybe. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Anyway. Yeah, we'll definitely follow up on this. I will be interested in seeing how it progresses for you. I personally think, like, Flatpak, there's just I still have some issues with Flatpak and, like, theme integration and whatnot, and maybe a KDE issue as opposed to GNOME issue. I know there's a lot of work being done in that area, but I think if Flatpak theme integration can get, like, on par with, believe it or not, Snap image, I think then that would be the great horse, I think, to ride. But I'm fine with all of them. I think App Image has its place. I think Snaps have their place. I think Flatpak seems like the where a lot of people are hanging out right now, and that means more eyes on it, which means more bugs fixed and more bugs created.
Well, of course, and, the more users you have and the more software. But apparently there are big plans for not only Flatpak itself, but FlatHub, which is, the way that they are hosting and providing software. They're going to supposedly do a big upgrade in the sort of the back end of the stack and the technology behind that. I heard some statistic that they're doing, like, over 20 terabytes of downloads a day, which is insane to me. Like, that's a hell of a lot of software on a day-to-day basis. And so that's a lot of bandwidth. That's a lot of, stress on your servers and your infrastructure. And so if it's going to be even more popular, then that sounds like a bit of a challenge for them to scale it properly. But apparently they just got $500,000 from somebody. I heard that, and there are commitments and companies that are on board with supporting it. I think a lot of, just like with Snap for Canonical, I think a lot of companies see Flatpak as a means of deploying software without having to worry about the underlying underlying distro itself. And I think
Right.
that's very attractive to a lot of them and we've always heard that, that's one of the problems in Linux is that a developer or someone distributing software has to deal with package formats, and there's a deb and an RPM and all the rest of it, versus if you can have these universal formats. And they both have their place. I don't think it needs to be only this or only that. I think the best situation is where you just have access to whatever software you need to use, hopefully in the most secure and up-to-date manner possible. So
Right. Also, I know they're working on the ability to use some method for allowing pay what you want or whatever with FlatHub as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a beta right now where they're actually working on that. I think it's like beta.flathub or something like that. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that. I haven't actually checked it. I just read it, and that's as far as I got with it. But that can also provide some incentive for like indie developers that they can maybe get kickback on some of the hard work that they do a little more easily. So we'll see how it goes, and maybe that that might equate to FlatHub and so forth being a self-sustaining entity as well. If they're getting like a small percentage of that to keep the servers running. So I think this is all good news for Linux software coming up. So Eris, you did a straw poll on how Archcraft is going for people, or how it's been, their experience with it. How did that straw poll shake out?
Okay, let me reload one last time. 30% of the respondents said it is amazing, supercharged with Kiss, by the way. And then 30% said didn't have enough time, busy with work, busy with life. 15% said it is okay. 10% said it is good. 5% said did not have a good time with it. 5% said not interested in doing the explorations in general. And 5% said other. I did get a reply, and let me pull that up. They said did not have a good time with it. Looks really nice out of the box, but when I installed it on a physical machine, a laptop, many of the widgets in the polybar didn't work. There were issues where you could click on the icons on the Rofi launcher to launch an app, but if you click anywhere else in the same row, nothing would hit launch. I could go on, but the real world experience was a bit disjointed. On the whole, from a cohesive distro perspective, to me it seems like a boutique distro that reuses the same polybar across its desktop and window manager environments. Full disclosure, aside from the Openbox, which I think is the default, and BSPWM, there are additional flavors for XFCE, LXDE, which I didn't have time to delve into. There are also premium editions, which I guess the maintainers using to fund the development, which seems like a bit of odd choice to me personally. Anyway, those just my thoughts on Archcraft. To me, it seems all about the look and not about being a cohesive distro.
Well, it's based on Arch, so you have that base. It's just nothing more than it's window dressings on top of Arch, right? I use the Arch command to basically just to install Flatpak, because I don't mess with Arch with installing software. I don't touch that. I didn't go there myself.
There was always a question about is Arch really a distro itself, because they don't really ship with anything by default, right?
Well, they're
They
distributing.
don't even give you the Linux kernel by default.
I thought they did now. They have like a very minimal installer now for Arch.
So they installer it to do, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to select it though.
I'm not
Not
sure
sure about that.
Mark is giving some north and south, so obviously he's got some thoughts on that.
Well, I was nodding to that Archcraft did have the installer, right?
Mhm.
I don't know about the regular Arch, but
Archcraft has two installers. They have the one that everybody uses. I forgot the name.
Calamares.
Calamares. There we go.
And then it had a CLI installer.
Yes. and regular Arch has that pack strap command if you want to do it that way, like the old way, and they also have a CLI installer now.
So then I guess the question there is, I'm thinking, when is a distro a distro? But I don't know if we should. I don't know, it sounds like a philosophical conversation.
Because the word implies you're distributing something, right?
Right.
You're picking out things. You're like being like a boutique of things. You're trying to include things and not include things depending on what your criteria is.
Well, they're choosing to give you very little, and that's it. They're not even giving you the box of Legos. They're telling you where the boxes of Legos are. Well, I guess let's see how everyone else here thought of what they thought of Archcraft, and we'll go from there.
So it's a minimal distro based on Arch Linux. It uses Openbox window manager and light applications in order to provide super fast experience. It also comes with BSPWM. It uses under 500 megabytes of memory. It is flat pastel colors and has consistency among all the UI elements, which is pretty important in some of these window manager environments to sort of integrate everything and make it looks the same. Built-in support for the AUR, which is pretty cool. Noteworthy, it does provide premium versions of Archcraft in order to fulfill financial needs. These special versions include River, BSPWM, New or NEWM, Hyperland, and Wayfire desktops. Dev can also be hired to create a custom tailor-made distro according to your needs. I think that's pretty cool. I honestly think that is something that could lend itself to the longevity of the project and the fact that, you know, it is a person developing it. And so if you had a need for a specific, I don't know, appliance type distro or something, like where you have what's the word I'm trying to think of? Anyway, so you know, if you just had some specific need that wasn't being filled by a just open release, to be able to hire someone and have them build something for you, I think that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a strength of it for sure. I didn't try the BSPWM at all. I just kind of left it default. But I thought that the initial presentation was really quite nice. Was there more than one ISO to download? Because I just saw the one.
No, I was only shown one.
The other ones you have to pay in order to have access to the premium ones.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's fine. I mean, Zorin does that, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. I don't think anyone cares about that.
No, I think that's I think it's a great way to allow somebody to easily contribute to the project financially. I think that having some sort of a method to allow for payment for something, you know, a donation link, a premium offering, even if it's not like all that premium, like even if the offering is not like a fantastic offering, just something so you can allow somebody to exchange, you know, have a monetary exchange for something, I think is good.
Well, and like you've done, where you will buy a license to SUSE SLE. You buy a license to SLE, which you're not necessarily using it, but you're at least, you know, providing some financial support.
I'm also sending a signal to SUSE that the desktop is important, and so it's something that they will work on. Although it's the wrong desktop, it's at least a desktop.
Hey, it's something.
Right.
So you had a bit of a almost like Freudian slip earlier when you were saying Arch Labs.
I was, yeah.
Because this, I mean, it immediately was like, oh, this really reminds me of Arch Labs in the best possible way. I was always impressed whenever I booted into Arch Labs. I didn't find myself using it as much as I thought maybe I would. I don't know. I haven't had the need for a lightweight distro, but the cohesiveness of it and the way that it all sort of fits together, and also the completeness of the experience, where everything's put together for you a lot of these window managers are great because you can customize them, but also whenever you first install them, you install i3 or, it's maybe not the same best example, but, and then you switch to it and you literally get a command prompt, and there's so little there for you that it's really impressive to me to see what someone's actually able to do with customizing some of these window managers. So
when I first booted it up,
Mhm.
is that a live? It looked like a live Linux, but I went straight into the installer, so I didn't play around with it to see if it was functional or had Firefox. But it looked like it was a live version.
It is a live version, and I actually give you the password is for the live version as well. I don't remember what it was offhand. Something like Linux something, of course. But yeah, it was a live version, and they gave you some different ways to install it, which I thought was pretty clever. Did anybody use anything other than Calamares to install it?
I tried using the CLI one, the
Mhm.
what's it called?
And Cursus?
And Curses. There you go.
Yep.
Curses. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the password and the username is live user
Okay, yeah.
for the ISO. I tried using that, and I was using VirtualBox to install it, and I think VirtualBox does BIOS by default. So it tried doing an ESP partition for me, which I found kind of odd. But other than that, I think it did install correctly. But afterwards, I just did the download with Calamares, and it worked also. But the Calamares did not do a ESP partition for me. It recognized that it was BIOS, and it just did one big partition.
Okay. What did it have? Which file system did you select?
The ext4.
Okay.
It was interesting, the CLI version, because it has a lot of little options. Like you can set all the flags for your partitions. You can individually, of course, set it up that way through the CLI. And it seemed very appropriate for the distro, I guess, versus doing like just Calamares.
Mhm.
It seemed like they were saying cohesive, because lightweight window manager, and then all the GUI applications are lightweight too. They're like simple, minimal, but I mean they're useful. Like that application for setting your background. I mean your resolution, ARNR. They give you a Trio Gparty. Gparty was a little odd, but I guess it makes sense because it doesn't do anything if it's not loaded. And they gave you Thunar, which is kind of interesting. They gave you Thunar because usually they would give you like PCManFM, I think. Especially since it's Openbox and LXDE, even though LXDE is dead, just like I guess Openbox. And they give you Genie, I guess like a text editor and IDE, I guess.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there's a way to connect your Wi-Fi, because I was doing it on VirtualBox, so I didn't test that out. I don't know if there was a GUI way, or you just have to do it by the terminal.
I just used the settings manager. There's actual settings manager application they had bundled in there, and I used that one. I thought it was actually really, really nice. It looked very XFCE-ish. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah, I agree.
But it was, I mean, they even had Bluetooth adapter stuff in there too. I didn't try the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I used it in a Vert Manager, and I did had one issue with Vert Manager. I had to change the display to being like VGA as opposed to the Vertio or whatever it is. That was really my only hang up that I had with it. So besides Eris, who else? Eric, you said you installed it too, right? And Mark installed it. Jinda installed. Rick installed it. Holy cow! I wonder if Prophetic installed it or not. It's okay. Did anybody have
through?
Yeah,
what I found.
Yeah, what you did to install? Because you always do it a very special way. You have like a
Well,
very
yeah, I was doing the exploration this week. We had our user group, the Atlanta Linux enthusiasts. We were having a monthly meeting, and there was no presentation scheduled. So I said, well, let's do the distribution exploration we needed, and kill two birds with one stone. So we had a demo, and what I do is I utilize a cloud service. In this case, I use Vultr, but I many times use other services like DigitalOcean and such. And so we provisioned a machine real quick, booted off the ISO, and again, I saw the same thing. It was it seemed to be a BIOS boot, and wanted to install. I did take a look at both the Calamaris and the CLI, but ultimately we chose the Calamaris. And then the only thing that once we got to partitioning, the people on the call, we kind of were doing this together. The people on call said, okay, well, let's try to do LVM. And honestly, I went to, Ubuntu's got a little checkbox where you can say, oh, I want to also do LVMs. Well, that was not an option in this, and I kind of wish it was, but and so when you go into doing the manual partitioning, you're on your own. And there is no, quick setting to say, hey, at least create all the things that I need. And so ultimately I for the sake of the demo, went back and we just did ext4. So full drive, no swap.
So what is your reason for wanting to use LVM? Like what's the elevator pitch? This is why LVM.
Well, again, just so that you can logical volume manager, when you use that means you can allocate different space to different file partitions. And again, if you just use one, well, everything is off of root and your entire drive is used. But this is, in some cases, this is not a best practice, because if you fill up your root drive, you're done. So what one reason to use LVM would be you would mount your home drive to a different partition, and then that is where users can fill up home if they want, but we're not gonna be filling up the root drive or other areas. And another partition that's very common to have is temp, and also boot. So boot, root, temp, and home are I think your typical LVMs. And anyone on the call is welcome to correct me on that, because I'm not, I don't usually, I usually let the Linux versions do that for me.
Right.
So
now, just for my sake, because I've never actually used LVMs, shame on me, I guess, but I have been using subvolumes in ButterFS. Is that kind of the same thing?
I don't know. I haven't used ButterFS. I think it would be similar.
They use subvolumes, but just the default that OpenSUSE does.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think ButterFS does not supersede LVLM, or you can use both of them together still.
Okay.
That doesn't supersede the functionality.
Okay. So
the rest of the installation went fine. We ran the installation and then rebooted, and then everything came up. And then of course you do need to patch the system, and I always call that out. And so then we went through and did the Pacman updates, and it did come with the latest Firefox 1.11, 1.11 after the security updates. Yeah, and so that's the rest of the installation. I'll talk about something else later. So
okay, Jinda, how was it for you?
I didn't have any problems installing it at all, really. I just ran Calamaris, and it went through real quick. I didn't have an issue.
Okay.
It was pretty straightforward.
It was a pretty slow installation, I thought. How was your installation process? Do you have any issues?
Oh, not really. Did I use Calamaris, and I didn't try the command line, but I tried seems like on one of the installations I tried the manual. I don't know if I did or not. Manual partitioning, which went fine, from what I understand. So it seemed like it worked overall. And the Yeah, the installation was fine. Trying to remember more about it. It was last Monday when I installed it, so I have forgotten what I did. But I made a video of it and all that kind of stuff. But I never got around to editing it because I had so many other things happen this week.
It
But I
happens.
never got. Yeah, so I'll get out the video eventually, late, but it's going to come out at some point.
All right. Well, good deal. No, Eris, you said you installed
Oh,
it. Oh, what's that?
I just remember one thing about it. The only part of the video, the installation I showed on the video is that it has an NVIDIA driver section in there.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Well, that's good to know. So if
Yeah,
you are running NVIDIA, it has a allowances for that. That's great.
yeah. So,
That was kind of a Columbo move you did there, by the way. Oh, one more thing.
oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
For those of you that were born like 40 years ago, you know what I'm talking about. Eris, how was the installation process for you? Did you have any issues, anything that came up?
Just that ESP partition that it tried giving me
Okay.
with BIOS. It was weird. That was with automatic partitioning for the CLI version of the installer. I think there's also a Lux option for the
Mhm.
CLI, and there was another option. I don't remember what it was. Also, it seemed like it worked, but I didn't actually reboot because I ended up doing the Calamaris because I'm just gonna do the Calamaris still. And then I rebooted, and that worked fine. I think the distro is very pretty. It is very cohesive in that sense that, like I said, it's the window manager, so everything's lightweight, simple. Same thing with the applications they gave you, very straightforward applications. And I do appreciate that boot screen, that it's a white boot with the logo
Mhm.
and the little bar.
Yep.
Like it's very simple, and it's just like the I guess the philosophy of the distro.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's very clean, very OEM kind of feel to it with that boot screen. That was very nice. Yeah, I didn't have any problems installing, except for previously mentioned the video driver backend configuration thing that I had to make a VGA instead of Vertio or whatever. But outside of that, I thought the installation was smooth. I did do a swap file, and I did use ext4, but I just kind of feel like doing Arch with ext4 is like riding a crotch rocket motorcycle without a helmet or any kind of knee pads or any kind of protection. That's kind of what I feel like. You're going fast, you're rolling fast, but if something happens, it's gonna be pretty catastrophic. But that's my opinion.
I have heard a lot of people say that they run they make sure that root's separate just in case they need to reinstall.
Oh, okay, right.
But yeah, if you were to do like a Butterfs, or they do give you that time shift, I think. They give you time shift in Archcraft, I think, also. So
Automatically? I didn't see it.
you can set it up. I think there's the application is there if you want to set it up afterwards. After you install it.
It's funny
Oh,
how
it is.
traditional backups are starting to seem so antiquated at this point. Like the idea that you have to copy all these files somewhere and then mirror it, and snapshots just seem to be so much more straightforward, I guess, and less prone to issues. It's just funny because I'm not sure I ever thought I'd see that happen. But I mean, I'm glad it has. In my many years in the IT field, I've spent an inordinate amount of that time dealing with backup systems and verifying backups and restoring backups and like just all of this stuff. I mean, I started with the tape drives and Netgear and
Jazz drives?
Yeah, it was.
Use Jazz drives at all?
Oh yeah, yep, all that stuff. But I mean, just those things ran so slowly, and yeah, you could put them in a vault and they would be stable for decades. But man, what a process to run them and the verifications and just all that. It was like a daily thing, the amount of time I spent on that. And so the idea that like you can just have snapshots now is pretty fantastic.
And then using the Btrfs send, you can just send it to another system.
Yeah.
Pretty
All
easily.
the things they're doing. Yeah, it is amazing. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I did want to mention somebody said I think it was Sean Gold, I think is his name. He did say for him the distro took 700 megs. I wasn't sure what the appropriate RAM usage was because I did use VirtualBox, and whether you use like proprietary drivers or something that could affect
Yeah.
your own count. So I don't know what it was, but that was his experience. He said it was 700 for him.
Yeah, I said for what it's worth,
I think-
Archcraft used around 700 megs of memory for me. I think it's probably RAM.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what that, because the claim was under 500.
Mhm.
I
That's
was
what I
under
read.
500.
Yeah, that's what I read. So
Yeah, mine was under 500 for some reason.
So if it's under 500, was that because of your desktop?
Probably. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's a real
maybe.
lightweight desktop. But
Yeah,
as soon as
it's open.
No, I mean as far as your desktop environment or tiling, whatever you're using.
Well, they're both window managers, so you have the choice of either picking Openbox or BSPWM, and Openbox is by
Oh.
default.
Oh,
Mm.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, Archcraft. Okay. I thought I used that at one
But
time.
but it doesn't matter if you're using your proprietary drivers or like the open source ones
Mm-hmm.
or nothing, because then it's not as efficient, so you're going to use more RAM. There's a lot of variables that could come into play for RAM usage.
Yeah.
So if you're near that, I think it's probably true. And like Jindo said, he got actually under it, so with hardware. So I guess it is possible.
Yeah, I installed the window managers on my laptop over here. It's an old thing. It's old. The same heavy. Can't say very heavy because but and I installed LXD on this Dell over here, and yeah, I got a 300 on BSPWM. I got 400 on Openbox and 500 on LXDSM.
Now, as far as your like your impressions with it. Sorry, lost train of thought. Your general user impressions. Did you have any thoughts like about the interface itself? Like me personally, I thought the interface looked great. It was the perfect kind of dark theme. It looked how I want
Sure.
things to look, like color wise. But I had some issues with the bar at the top. Like sometimes the power button would be there to like turn it on and off or reboot it or whatever, and sometimes it wouldn't be there. Did anybody have a similar situation, or is that just me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
was
was-
going through the bar widgets at the top, and I was trying to see which each thing did, and some of them just didn't do anything for me. I was like, "What is this?" I couldn't left click it, right click it, or do anything with it. I was like, "Was it just there as an image?" I didn't know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about some of that too. It like some of it was, great. I liked the different bits of information. I like that mine said grateful the whole time it was there, so I thought that was kind of nice. I guess.
Mine said
That
grateful
was
until I
music.
reboot, and then it said something else. Yeah, I believe it was a automatic playing music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you click the play button on there, it'll start playing music.
Oh, okay.
And the grade starts out grateful, and it's got 4 other ones on there that you can go through. That's only on the window manager versions.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I just like that it said grateful. I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Now, did anybody think the lock screen was really cool on it? Not that it was like all that practical, but I just really liked it. I thought it was just like if you were someone who didn't understand computers or anything like that, if you were computer averse or Linux averse, whatever, it might stop you in your tracks from being able to use it. But I just thought it was pretty clever how, as you type in, it's got a little circle and it kind of like does this little whatever pattern around as you're typing. I just thought it looked cool.
That was cool. The one thing I really liked is they included the Windows 11 wallpaper.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I have no idea why it's there. That blue, funny, squiggly shape thing. I don't know how to explain it, but the Windows 11 wallpaper's in it.
I didn't notice, but you actually get a full-on menu when you right click on the desktop.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
And then you can go down in there and hit like I can't remember if it's preferences. Yeah, I think it's preferences, and you hit change wallpaper, and one of the choices is that squiggly thing, blue wallpaper for Windows 11. I was like, okay.
Well, that's definitely the one to use, just because.
Yeah. Oh, that's the first one I picked.
Yeah, the right-clicking menu, that's Openbox.
That's
That's
open, right? That's
That's his
Openbox.
function.
And then
Yeah.
XFCE and Openbox mixed together, so to speak.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that.
Yeah. The
I did,
LXD.
Yeah.
The LXD version had both the dark version of the Windows wallpaper and then the light version.
the dock on the bottom. Did anybody have any issues like with not popping back up?
It did it for me.
Yeah, because I'd have to minimize or whatever, restore whatever. I had to make the whatever window I was using not full screen, not full full size, so I could just access that. I thought that was a bit of a
I think that's pretty standard though. I mean, full screen, when you go to full screen, it usually covers up the dock tab.
Yeah, that's not really very convenient, I think.
Yeah.
So it just made for a lot of extra clicks. I'm sure there's probably a keystroke way besides Control Tab, but I just want to select.
Yeah, on LXD, I haven't set it so it always showed it because that's how I like it.
Yeah. So I think a full dock along the bottom that wouldn't be covered up, that would have been nice, I think, for me. That would have been a nice, for me would be better. I don't know, that's probably not true for everybody, but for me for sure, it would have been better. Did anybody add Flatpak and try installing some Flatpaks? Yep. Dale, you did that? How'd that go for you? Feel free to interject anytime, Dale. You don't have to raise your hand.
Don't mind me. I've been going through some sinus infection things the past three or 4 days, so I'm just kind of trying to chill.
I got you.
When we were trying to record distro hoppers the other day, I think half of it ended up on the cutting room floor because of all my coughing and sneezing. So, but yeah, on the Flatpak, it was pretty straightforward. Just the the Pacman capital S and Flatpak. But one thing I did notice, and when I went to install Flatpak, and I've seen this before with other Arch-based distros before, and I think this kind of makes some friction if you were a new user, or at least a new to even Linux user, is you type that in and it comes up and it has 4 choices, and they're not very descriptive as far as a normal person would be thinking. It says, well, we got this one for KDE, we got this one as a GTK, we got this one is for the LXQT, and it's like, and me being experienced, I'm like, well, I just chose GTK and it installed. One thing I thought was really nice about about Arch is the way they package it. You don't have to do the adding the remote. You just install Flatpak and you can immediately type Flatpak search. It does take a little bit. It almost feels like it's not working. I think some people might try to hit Control-C or try to close the window or something because they're not patient enough. But I think because the way they package it and when they add the FlatHub, I think it has to rebuffer it or recache itself from when they originally made the ISO.
Mm-hmm.
So I did notice that first initial delay, but otherwise I installed the Flatpak. I installed Telegram.
Same.
And it was nice to see that they had the the XDG stuff straightened out, because all I had to do was log out, log back in, smack the super key, typed in TELE, popped right up, pressed enter. Then the only other thing to make it look like the rest of the desktop, you have to go into the advanced settings in Telegram and tell it to use the system window frame. Otherwise, it's going to be that same like Windows 3.1 looking window.
Right.
But otherwise, didn't really have a problem with them, because I've had with other distros I've reviewed and that where you have to go in and create .desktop files, or you have to go in and change a whole bunch of things to try to get it to pop up in the menu. This was easy, as they say, easy peasy.
That's excellent. Yeah, I didn't know that about the flat hub thing being automatically set up, because I did the search and it just sat there and I didn't get any feedback, and I just kind of waited for a while, and I thought, well, I must have to install, or add the repository, the Flatpak repository, and so I did that command, the if exists.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Like, I don't know about packaging, how they do that to make the ISOs. I know we have people on here that are quite familiar with how to make the distro ISOs, but I've just seen that with various Arch distros where sometimes comes right up, and sometimes you type Flatpak search and you're sitting there going, and then you'll be watching TV or something, and you'll forget that you did it, and you look over. Oh yeah, that's right. I was searching for an application.
Yeah. Yeah, I even walked away for a bit, and it was still churning away. But I guess I wasn't patient enough. It was a little bit slower than not. Now, Ricky, I haven't heard from you in a while, or even Swift. Swift, thanks for being here. Glad you made it. So, Ricky, have you tried Archcraft?
Not as of yet. I've been so busy as of late that I haven't had a chance to. But I am planning to do a review on it on my channel within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Like, you're pretty familiar with Arch, though, right?
I pretty much just recently returned to normal Arch as of yesterday. I got a full-blown Arch Linux machine right over here.
Okay.
Openbox window manager, Dracula theme, all of that.
Okay.
I've also used Manjaro, Endeavor OS, and Dragast, amongst a few others in the past.
Okay. Now, for those that are like real deep, this is a question for everybody, real deep in the Arch, like you're real familiar with it, you're comfortable, you think Arch is, the cat's pajamas, it's neat, it's groovy, whatever. Would you say this is just feels like Arch with just some window dressings by default? Is that how you would view this?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing with Arch-based distributions, is that it's really, Manjaro takes a pretty extreme, I guess they do some things that are pretty strong, like having their own repos and then actually controlling the release cadence of Arch. That's on one end of the scale. The other side of the scale would be something like Endeavor, which does provide the XFC customized desktop, but for the most part, you're getting a very vanilla. I mean, it's essentially like an installer, right? It's an easy way to put a snapshot of Arch on your system, dealing with partitioning and just using a nice installer to do it. And this has definitely that slant on it, where it is a way to get Arch as well as these window managers running. But I think they go beyond that with the customization. And again, the idea that if you were to install Arch and then just install Openbox, you're going to get a very bare bones setup, where you're going to have to piece together and put in a menu. You're going to have to put in the taskbar. You're going to have to put in all these different things. And the amount of time they save you by doing this, I think, is really the value. Yes, it's Arch. yes, you're going to have access. They've set up the R for you and all of that stuff. But the fact that they've spent the time to make it so cohesive and put together, like you can just start using it, right? And that's the thing with Arch is if you do it the Arch way, you're starting from scratch and you're sort of building up a system to meet your specific needs. And where these Arch derivatives come in is they save you all of that effort. You can just literally install it and start using it. Yes, you're going to install different applications and stuff like that, but by and large, you don't have to really do much with the underlying system.
In that case, then it is a distribution of Arch. But
I think so.
It is Arch ultimately. So okay,
definitely, yeah.
It is using the Arch repositories, all of them. Because when I did the update, it looked like they were just the basic Arch repositories. I didn't dig into it, unless someone else has any conflicting information on that. Yeah,
I assume they have like Endeavor has their own repository that they run off of GitHub, and I think maybe one other place, but they literally only have like a dozen or 24 packages in that repository. They're supporting their settings manager and some of the theming stuff, but by and large, 99% of the stuff that's on that system is just plain Arch. So I would guess that this is very similar. I haven't looked either, but they probably have a little utility repo that holds their customizations.
Okay. What were you gonna say, Ricky?
I was going to say, my experiences using the AUR over the years have been vastly different with basically each Arch distro that I've tried, including normal Arch. Basically, I normally just install packages the normal way, like the wiki tells me to, but there have been times over the years where I tried like one of the AUR helpers here and there. Mainly Paru, Yay. I've never tried Yoward, but I've at least tried 2 of those. That's pretty much how I've used the AUR over time, basically.
I tend to avoid the AUR. To me, it's like walking through a field. You don't know if you're gonna step in a gopher hole or something like that.
So you feel like it's overly complicated, too much that you don't want, like walking in a trash dump or something?
No, I wouldn't say trash dump. That sounds a little bit too harsh. Like sometimes, like if things aren't kept up to date in the AUR, because that is an issue where some things are not kept up to date. So if you're reliant on something on the AUR, then it can fall behind and things can break. And so I just tend to avoid anything that's not. I think AUR is the AUR is its strength, but I would rather use Flatpak over the AUR. If I'm going to need some software that's not in the main line, I'm just going to use a Flatpak.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. So basically what you're saying is that you'll have a lot of packages on there. They're not updated. I know I'm being slow, but they're not updated. Meanwhile, other packages that are being maintained by other people are. So you get this mismatch of stuff that's in a collection. That's how I'm understanding how that.
I mean, to me, the AUR is it's a shortcut. Like,
okay,
if you look in the AUR, basically all they have are these things called package builds, PKG builds. And if you look inside of them, it's almost like, and the the DevOps guys can yell at me if they want to, but it's almost like a playbook for container or something like that, where like a Docker container, like it's basically not a YAML file, but it's got essentially a list of instructions on what to do, like go get the package from the source package, and here are the dependencies that need to be installed along with it. And the nice thing is it's plain text, and they even tell you, don't just blindly install stuff from the AUR, download the package build and then see what it's doing. And in many cases, you can literally just look and see that it's either pulling down the source code and then it's going to build it, or it's taking a deb package and it's going to convert it into something that Pacman can use. So the AUR really is it's a shortcut for doing work that you would otherwise have to do yourself, like building from source and stuff. And the key thing there is there's a ton of stuff in the AUR that I would never touch either, but you look at the popularity of a package, how many people have endorsed it, and how many downloads and how often it's being used, and you can pretty much you can feel pretty comfortable that ones that have people actively using and leaving comments and stuff, that those are actually in pretty good shape. And actually, I would argue stuff that's in like universe repo, yeah, Canonical says they're going to start, looking at it and maintaining stuff, whatever that means. But by and large, there's a lot of stuff in there that is not really looked at. And, I'm not saying that it would be straightforward or simple to sort of inject a bad package in there, but in terms of reviewing something, I feel pretty confident in the AUR whenever I see that amount of activity and know that there are people using it and people have reviewed it and all of that sort of thing. So that's my little soapbox on the AUR. Like, I think in some ways it can be better than even just a, world type repository.
There is an AUR for other distributions. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's called Lure AUR. So it's kind of it's an interesting project. I'll put a little article in the chat and the chat. But there's if you want to have the AUR Wild West on a distribution of your choice, that is an option.
You don't consider Open Build System to be a little similar to AUR?
No. So when you go to look at, like, if you go to install something, it tells you the versions of it, and then it will always do those checks before installing, which I'm sure Arch does too. But because you can roll stuff back, it's not really an issue. Like if something breaks, and really I use the Pacman repository in OpenSUSE, which is like the RPM Fusion for Fedora, and I haven't had any issues with that either. So, but yeah, no, it could be like the Wild West, but you do have access to the Open QA as well, and those packages, not all of them, but a lot of them get the Open QA treatment as well. So it's not quite as Wild West, but it could be. I mean, it has the potential to be, but it's not one big repository. They're broken down into different projects, and then you are given a warning about it as well.
I think the interesting sort of misnomer of the repository part of the AUR is there's no software actually hosted there. There are package builds, which are basically instructions. So, I mean, there's tiny little text files that are essentially just instructions on what to do, but there's no actual software there. So that's a bit of a sort of misnomer in that respect, where, they're not hosting anything. It's all third party. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think using AR for like key system things would ever make sense. But like, if you want to have DaVinci Resolve as a video editor on Arch, you can do the heavy lifting yourself if you want, or you can go to the AUR and download the package build, and it will do everything that it needs to do to get it installed. So I think it's a lovely thing to be used sort of sparingly on non-essential type stuff. So
yeah, I would agree. Don't just install willy-nilly whatever you want. Just make sure you're doing your due diligence before adding it, which I guess everyone should be doing that, because you never know, something naughty can get into your system. A misbehaving application.
Naughty packages.
Naughty.
That's right.
Naughty packages.
You're a naughty package. Oh, goodness. It's after 9, isn't it? Yep, I can tell.
Yep, it is after 9.
Oh, wow.
Install LibreWolf and LibreWolf and Telegram on the community repositories in Arch. Surprised to find those there. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Arch, their community repository, they have a lot of stuff in there that other distros do not.
Yeah,
Yeah, and those
that's
are
for
sanctioned
sure.
packages. That's not the AUR. Like that's
There's up to
those
date
are
to stuff
supported.
too, you know.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I didn't really explore the community repository at all because I don't like using Pacman. So I just used Pacman enough to get Flatpak installed, and then that was the end of my time with Pacman. Until they clean up their syntax, I'm not using it.
What? Capital S, lowercase y, u. That makes complete sense.
You know,
and S for install. Yeah.
You know, when you say it like that, you're right. You're absolutely right. I don't know what I was thinking.
I mean, yeah, it's like lowercase s is the search, uppercase S is to install.
Sync, essentially.
So
well, and you can't just use one. Like if you want to search, you have to do the capital S with the small s. Because that's what search really
right.
Is, you know, it's like,
yeah, I can't remember. I use Pacman often enough to know that I don't want to use it.
Right.
So
if you go into this, sorry, go ahead.
Eric. No, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, if you ever go into the support forums or like Manjaro or any like Endeavor, you'll find people with these insanely long and complex Pacman commands. Like it's SYU is refresh and update, right? Refresh the repo listings and then update. But there's an SYYU, there's an SYYUU. And it's just like, what is going on? Like I've tried to read and follow some of those threads and just been like, all right, I am completely lost now. Like why do we use two U's? Like, so yeah, Pacman is insanely powerful, but it's also so complicated. The good news is that I ran Arch for a long time and never had to do any of those crazy things. It's at capital S lower S to search, S to install, capital R lowercase sn to remove. And so the real basic stuff that you do every day is, even though it's esoteric, it's still kind of like, you just sort of know that's the way you do it and you just do it. Don't ask too many questions about why you're doing it.
You say, I read the manual. I don't understand it still.
No.
Yeah, the parallel downloads.
That man pain. Nice. What's that?
The parallel downloads is pretty nice.
Yes. Yeah. Well, DNF does that too, which is pretty sweet. In running Fedora, I've noticed it's doing. I just did an update earlier today, and Firefox is in the background as the second thread, and in the foreground. Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
I think Nala provides that too. For apt. Nala. That's some parallel downloads, I think.
Parallel and then Delta. If you throw in Delta, that's nice too, because the DNF, I've noticed, saves. It's not a lot, but it does do a Delta update if it can, which is pretty sweet. So if it doesn't need the full 100 megs, it's gonna only do 89 of it. It's like, hey, that's something.
I did watch the video that you created about the Nala. I'm going to have to install that instead of using apt, because that is really nice.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting, I guess, when I was doing the bookworm testing, it's kind of a diversion a little bit, sorry. And I installed Nala. I had problems with the upgrade on apt. And I installed Nala and then it fixed it on bookworm. So that's interesting.
I was just gonna say is that since we're talking about Pacman, I think the distro only updates like quarterly, like every 3 months or something like that, 4 times a year.
Okay.
And I did do a Pacman SYU, and it was successful. So it's been, I think, over 2 months, which I think is like the rule of thumb. You're not supposed to let Arch go more than 2 months for the updates.
Okay.
And I think that it survived the update. So I did want to say that.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Right.
That's about your limit, 2 months?
That's what I hear from people. Like, or you're not supposed to go past 2 months. I don't know if it's true.
It's like a recommendation. I mean, honestly, there can be a breaking update the next day. You could have just updated and have something happen. I mean, duration is more likely because enough things change and the dependencies change. And that's really what starts to break you, is that the dependency will have like updated or reverted, or they'll have removed the package. Like, and when you go to do that old, like the huge update, the things don't link properly. The dependencies aren't resolved properly, I guess is the best way to say it. So it's not a guarantee that if you do it every 2 months, you won't have a problem, but it's less likely.
Okay.
But that's why they tell you should always read the news before you update. And basically, I would do this when I was running Manjaro. Like before, if I noticed that I went to install something and then it said, oh, there's, a gig's worth of packages to download, I was like, oh, okay, they just did a push. And then I'd go to the forum and, they'd have a post. And whereas Arch, if you're updating, they do have news. You got, you check the news site and they will have like, hey, system D, we had this change. And, if you're running this specific configuration, you need to account for it. A lot of times those things don't apply universally. So they're sort of situational, but, they tell you, and if you ever have a breaking issue, like they'll just say, well, you should have read the news. So
don't reboot after this update. And it's like 3 lines down and you skip that because you're like, oh, I don't use that package. You scroll down and then you're like, oh yeah, update. Then you reboot. Yeah.
Computer and that's where Arch Chroot comes in. The most popular video I've ever made was Arch Chroot and how to fix your system. And I get every week, at least once a week, I get someone saying, I had one today, you helped me fix my broken system. Because Arch Chroot you just boot into Arch Chroot, you get you do a couple commands, it gets you down into that root environment, you fix either the configuration or install the package, whatever you need to do, and then get out of it and reboot. And it's not really that hard. So breaking Arch isn't that hard, and fixing it isn't that hard either. That's not fair. Breaking it is actually it's as easy for me to break Ubuntu as it is to break Arch. So that's not fair. I can equally break anything.
You're an equal opportunity breaker of distros.
Exactly. I'm not as thorough as Distro Hopper's Digest.
at breaking.
At testing. My goodness, I love when it comes out and it's like, it's over an hour long. And yeah, Distro Hopper's Digest is awesome. If you guys don't or haven't checked it out.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
It's a good one.
Well, if you got a link,
Moss is also on Mintcast, so I'm very familiar with him.
Yeah, our next episode should be coming out soon. I think Tony is going to finish the edit tomorrow afternoon his time in UK. So
gotcha.
But
what did you guys do, if you don't mind saying?
I know I did PC Linux OS, and think, oh, my mind's blanking. It's the distro that has like the 30 gig ISO. That's
Endless OS.
Yeah, Moss did Endless, and then we have a bunch of the distro news, and then we had a critique of Rudra Saraswat, his distro, and I'm blanking on the name because I'm not thinking clearly of my sinus infection.
Blend OS.
Blend OS. Yeah, we talked about our failures with it, which is nothing against him. It's just we tried it and we've reported back to him what we found, and he's going to fix the problems because he just finished his finals, so he has a lot of free time now to work on that. But yeah, we talk about our trials and tribulations with that, and then think that was about it. We are our third co-host, because of life issues and scheduling, had to leave the show. So we're looking for another person that has sysadmin or gaming experience in Linux to either be a third co-host or someone that can submit some audio to us that we can include in the episode. And you'll be able to hear the details of that in the episode that will be coming out. But one thing I did want to point out about Archcraft, and I don't know how many of you are command line prefer command line utilities, and that the thing that I really appreciated about Archcraft is you don't have an entire neofetch screen pop up. You don't have some type of sysinfo script running telling you every single detail of your operating system. You just open up, you just open up the terminal, and you've just got arrows, a current directory, and a prompt. Very simple. And it's not anything like ZSH, or FSH. It's just bash. You just typing commands, it answers. I'm just not a big fan of the other environments. But I don't know, and if anyone else caught that, but I really appreciate that, because some of these distros I review, you go into the terminal and you have this entire screen of information, and I always have to type CLR.
Yeah.
Like, clear. Get rid of it.
Yeah. I'm not I've tried Fish, and I've tried ZSH and some other shell, terminal emulators and stuff. And I'm the same way. I'm so used to bash at this point that, they tried to add nice features, and I appreciate, some of the like autocomplete and, some of that stuff. But honestly, it just ends up getting in my way. Like Manjaro's GNOME release has I don't know what they're using. I think it's ZSH, and it has autocomplete on, and it gets in my way continuously. I mean, it's just really annoying.
100%. Because I've had this discussion with our co-host that left the show. I still in contact with him on Signal, and we've had a go around about this, and I think I've nailed down really what the appeal of stuff like that is because I learned how to type when I was in 5th grade, because I broke my arm on the playground. No, that's when I sprained my wrist. I broke my arm on summer break, and then when we learned how to write cursive, I had to use my left hand because my arm was in a sling. And I never, to this day, I sometimes have to like Google, how do you write a Q in cursive? Because my handwriting's horrible. It's like an EKG of a person hyped up on caffeine. It's not good. So I
bet you it's not worse than mine.
we could have a test.
The Z is the most fun cursive letter, lowercase z.
How do you? I don't. I'm trying to like you raised a question. I don't even know if I know how to do a cursive Q.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Yeah, because it's to the point where you just print. I mean, I've talked to some of the younger generation, and I had one place, I can't remember where I was at, some restaurant, the waitress was about my age, and she's like, she had to start writing the notes and everything to the staff and print, because she was so used to writing everything in cursive. She had one of the 20-somethings come up to her and go, can you like print these out for us, because we can't read your handwriting? And she's like, that's cursive. And they're like, what? It's cursive, it's script. They're like, and they found out they weren't even taught it. They
No.
graduated high school, went through all the way through college, never used it.
No. And you know
But-
what? Honestly, I write so little now between a smartphone, a tablet, and a computer. And most of my correspondence being an email. Like if I have to write a Christmas card, I'm like, it's like, how do I write? I forget.
But yeah, it's well, Josh and I sort of had a consensus about the appeal of these alternative shells is your typing. Because like I said, I've been typing now for, oh, good heavens, I'm going to be 49 Monday. What,
Well, happy
30
birthday.
years? Thank you. 30, I've probably been typing 30 years, 35 years, something like that. I can type like 60, 70 words a minute. So I'm, for autocomplete, like Eric said, that just annoys me, because especially if I'm in Word or if I'm in Google Docs or something, or even Grammarly, which I love. That just irritates me because I'll be typing along. I got my flow going on, and all of a sudden I see that, and I'm like, and my OCD is like, okay, I got to go back and correct that. I cannot complete this paragraph until I go back and correct that, because usually I'll type, then go back through and read it. And I think what Josh and I were talking about this a few months ago is I think that's the appeal, because a lot of people in his generation, they're sort of caught between like a rock and a hard place, where depending on their grade level, and he just graduated college, but depending on their grade level going up through primary and high school and whatever, he said some of us didn't learn cursive, some of us didn't learn how to type. So how are you supposed to communicate in the 21st century if you can't write cursive and you can't type? Very well. I mean, you know how
Sign
to
language.
type.
Yeah.
You do voice memos.
Yeah. But yeah, and I just tell him, and I tell other people, you just got to practice. I mean, where I got a lot of my practice was I ran a BBS, and this was a lot of DOS-based batch files. I had like a 200-line batch file that loaded the BBS, did all the Dora games, did all the FidoNet mail processing, and these were all if exist else batch files. And I just got used to typing, and I started out at like 10, 15 words a minute, 20 words a minute, 25 words a minute. I just did one the other day. I saw it in a YouTube video. Somebody was found this thing where you type in typing test, Google will actually have a little box where you can actually do a typing test from the search page. And I'm like, I haven't measured myself in like 20 years. I have no idea how fast I type. And it varied anywhere from like 50 to 70. So I'm like, huh.
All right, well, I'm going to wrap up this Archcraft conversation. Did anybody else have anything else they want to add to their Archcraft experience?
Well, I just wanted to say that we were talking about ZSH. ZSH was the default shell, I think, from what was installed, right? And that kind of threw me off, because I like Bash. And then the one thing I did was I uninstalled Nano. One of our lug members doesn't like Nano. Well, it didn't actually change the environment variable for editor, so that's a failure. after you and that was I even exited the shell and came back. So little bug. It's a very simple thing, but yeah. So I enjoyed the exploration, Nate. It was good to see an Arch where I could just kind of get it, let it go and run and install, and it gave me a fast desktop that I could use. So I was happy with it. I don't use Arch on a normal, so this was great.
Well, that's good to know. Anybody else have anything they
Yeah.
want to say?
Yeah, I just looked. It is ESH. I just saw the dot
Yeah.
file.
Okay.
But the only other thing I was going to add is I like the grub menu. I thought it was nice that they had the reboot, shutdown, and enter the firmware interface, because depending on your motherboard manufacturer, some of these are like my MSI. You pretty much have to be sitting and going delete, 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 delete from the time you hit the power button for it to go into the firmware interface. And sometimes you get your login screen, you're like, shoot, and you have to reboot again. I like that one that's in the grub menu, because you don't even have to worry about it. You just hit enter, and you can go right into the firmware.
That is nice.
Otherwise, I just liked it because it doesn't have the corner activations. That's one thing that just really annoys me, is in some of these distros or desktop environments, you go to move a window and you activate the corner, and all of a sudden the window goes, and I just hate that when it resizes. So pleasant experience, and
I
so
I
much
could figure
so,
out how to resize. Yeah.
yeah. I like this experience so much so because I used Openbox when I first started on Linux back in the late 90s, and I had forgotten how nice Openbox actually is and how configurable it is, that I'm actually in the process of installing it on Debian testing on my desktop.
Yeah, I think my final thought would just be that I don't have a need for a lightweight desktop right now, but it's the same way I always felt about Arch Labs and Bunsen Labs and sort of all of these style.
You said Bunsen Labs. That perks me up. I love Bunsen Labs.
I do too.
I love
Yeah.
them. Matter of
Yep.
fact, do I
So
have it?
I love that people focus on this, where, just because it's a low power system doesn't mean it can't look good, doesn't mean it can't be fully functional and have all the bells and whistles. And some of these window managers, I would never know the capabilities of them without someone having put this amount of effort into tuning it and putting it all together for me.
Right.
And I think that there's tremendous value. And so looking through their premium offers, I mean, that's basically what you're paying for, is that somebody who's an expert at putting things together spent that time, and rather than you have to do it. And then also they're going to support it, which is nice. So I think if I ever had a system that I needed a lightweight, low power, distro, that this is absolutely one of the highest that I can think of.
In the premium versions, there's also a utility that it takes your wallpaper, and based on that, it changes the color to your terminal.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think the way he set it up, because it's premium, it does it automatically. So I think whenever you change your wallpaper, it will automatically change your colors for you.
I do have to say the premium offerings on there are quite interesting. I didn't really dig into that at all, but I just thought there's some things I have never seen or heard of before, and that to me is just kind of compelling, because it's not what you normally hear, in the conversation of Linux and open source desktops and whatnot, Hyperland desktop. It sounds neat. I don't know what that means, but it sounds neat. And then River desktop, Wayfire. No, I think they're neat names. Don't know what it means. Never heard of them, but I do like the fact that it's not the regular, what's on the beaten path by most distributions. It's something that's being its own thing, and I do appreciate that.
Oh, for goodness sake, yes.
Wayfire is like a spiritual successor to Compass.
Okay.
It's kind of like that.
Oh, nice.
And I think that's for Wayland.
Okay. I haven't heard of it, and it's neat that
What you said, Compass, you got me perked up.
What's
it's the
Compass with Wayland?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can now have burning windows and everything in
That's
Wayland.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Wobbly windows,
And
desktop
spinning cube.
cube.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Do it again.
I remember the
Do it
first time
again.
I
Don't
saw
forget the fire.
How many people, like for real, how many people did the desktop cube, wobbly windows, and the fire effect get to try Linux? How many nerds saw that and were like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing that."
I
Yep.
miss those days.
I don't know if it didn't get me because that came a few years into my Linux journey. I don't know that like made somebody necessarily want to try it, but it definitely got some people playing with my laptop just to burn the windows or blow them up or make them wobbly. Now, wobbly windows still exists on Plasma, and I have wobbly windows enabled because I've got to have that.
Oh,
I miss
okay.
the
Do you
fractal
do you
screens
turn the
today.
wobble effect down a little bit, or do you leave it full
Why?
wobble?
It's not extreme, but like if I take a window and I yank it, it'll definitely look kind of a little rubbery. and actually, I think it's fantastic. It's not like egregiously wobbly, but it's enough to bring a smile to my face. I don't blow up my windows anymore, and I don't burn them either. But for a while, my oldest, he actually had it. He liked the blowing up of the windows because that's still an option in Plasma. So he gets a kick out of that.
When
What
I
was the
use
one where the
Plasma,
cats ran across the top of the?
What?
There
I
was
didn't know
one
that
where
one.
the cats ran across the title bar windows, right?
Yeah.
I remember something years ago where you had the sheep on your screen. It made me think about that from high school. With the sheep, I don't know if you remember the application where you could have them and they could be a bunch of sheep on your screen that kind of walk around and graze and stuff.
That's nuts, man.
I do remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of KDE, Nate, I have a special section for that in my talk.
Okay, good. 'Cause
Yes.
you are part of the community free pour. All right, but
Yes.
did anybody else have anything you want to say about Archcraft? Any other final thoughts? Because if not, we'll move on. No,
I had
nothing.
one thing.
Okay, fire away.
Yeah, well, I noticed when I installed it on, because it's a minimal install, so I want to see how well it run on old computers.
Uh-huh.
And it actually run pretty good on old computers except for updates.
It would
Because
not have memory to run the
this,
updates.
yeah, this laptop I showed you earlier, it's got, I think it's got it's old Acer Aspire 5, blah, 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 numbers on it anyway. Yeah, it's kind of a slower. I guess the Wi-Fi in it isn't as fast as it is nowadays. Those kind of things. So it took a long time to update, and I had to keep timeout. Some things for timeout. I had to keep keep it updating all the time. It's only issue in that. That's more Arch thing, I think, more than anything. It's all the updates you got.
Right.
So get through this 300 and whatever updates is like a pain.
It's like 372 or something like that I had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's the only bad thing I noticed about it. But otherwise, once you got the updates done, it ran real nicely.
That's excellent.
So I think maybe the use case for that might be more of a, well, once you get it updated, you can update it, frequently enough. You don't have a bunch of updates to do in one shot, but the use case for it might be more like you need some extensive memory for some programs to run or something like that. Then this will reduce down the system resources enough where you can run it, maybe. Something like that.
Well, I don't know if you have the time or the inclination, but I wonder if you can maybe get that system update somehow. I wonder if maybe there's some parameter that you can add to your chain of Pacman command that might make it maybe like instead of downloading in parallel, maybe not parallel downloads might actually.
Well, I did disable parallel downloads and it helped because I got through 14 updates before it killed out the first time.
Oh.
So I put it on one parallel download, and that seemed to help. It processed faster, but it's eventually a timeout.
Okay.
It's kind of like, it's weird, but
yeah. Well, what can you do? I guess.
Yeah.
Old hardware.
I don't know if there's another command I could put in there, or change some other setting in there that would help it to go faster. I don't know. It might just be my old computer.
You might have to read the manual, as the Arch folk would say, on that one.
Yeah, right. I did read a lot of manuals.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for participating in this distribution exploration. I thought it was fun. I don't normally enjoy Arch, but that was not a bad Arch experience. But I do thank Flatpak for making Arch more enjoyable. So next week we're having a news flight night. So if you have any suggestions, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com. But if you have any suggestions for anything, that could be discussion topics, other distributions you like to try, applications, whatever. I just added to the distribution suggestion list today. In fact, someone recommended Linux Lite 6.2 XFCE. Might be fun to try.
Yeah, Linux Lite's good stuff.
I don't know that I've tried it, but it's on the list now.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Wow, I got.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I want to try like a nice dumpster fire that everybody just absolutely loathes. I'm kidding. I don't want to do that now.
Oh, you mean like Justin Bieber OS?
That sounds like it might be very musically inclined. With a little auto-tuning.
Baby, baby, oh baby.
You know, I don't know if it'll be in the for the news flight, but especially with the the web stuff that I do, like AI has been a huge topic, and I'm in the hype cycle for news. It's everywhere. Yeah, I get that, but like I just saw today that OpenAI is allowing ChatGPT limited access to like the web now. Oh, because before it was contained and it couldn't go out and get new information, and now apparently it's going to have some channel to do that. So I think that's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. I wonder how that's going to work out. I need to play with it again.
I also
it's going to become
I got access to Bard today, which is Google's version of that, and it was pretty weak comparatively. I asked it to do things that I've been asking ChatGPT to do, and ChatGPT is pretty almost scary good at some of the things I've been asking it to do. And I asked very similar things of Bard, and it was not it was not a comparative experience. So I think it's very much like a Me Too product. Like they had to put something out because they're Google, right? And everyone else, Microsoft has something, so Google has to have something too. But I don't think it's like they don't have to have a consumer facing product. So I don't know that maybe that's why it's not as good. So anyway, I just might be something worth talking about.
Oh, for sure.
To see if other people are using it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's probably not a bad idea. If you haven't tried one of the Chat GPT or something like that, it's free to try. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that next week if you want. I'll open that tab back up and play with it some more. I was going to do something with it, and I just never got around to it. I got sidetracked. But anyway, also there is a Linux Saloon calendar. So if you want to see like what's coming up, it's on the calendar. If you don't see it, let me know. You can go to linuxsaloon.com, and it's a redirect to cubiclenate.com/linuxsaloon, and then you can see the calendar. It's a Google calendar. Speaking of Google, so you can add that to your Google Calendar if you like, or just check it out. Actually, Ulfnick in the chat, he helped me make that so it was not region locked. So if it should automatically go to whatever time zone you are. We'll go right on to our community free pour. Ben, you have been working on a thing again.
Another thing?
What is this thing you've been working on? And has Matt been working with you on it? Is that why Matt's hanging out here to
No.
keep you in
Matt's
line?
just here to hang out.
Oh, okay.
Be part of the show.
Okay.
But what I've been working on, and this is an independent one, just so you know.
Okay.
So originally, my Xenix OS project was going to be based from Venom Linux's Scratch package. However, that went kaboom, let's say, to put it nicely. And so I started again, fresh LFS, using the automated Linux from Scratch project, actually. And if you don't know what that is, go to linuxfromscratch.org and click on the ALFS button, and that'll give you everything you need to know about it in a nutshell. And I actually made it multi-lib, as a matter of fact, multi-arch, however you want to call it.
Mhm.
And they apparently had 2 package managers you could choose from in this. One is Debian's D package. 2 is Arch's Pacman, as a matter of fact. But the caveat was I had to change Pacman to 6.02 because they shipped with an old version 6.01. Why, I don't know. It's just what they had. So I changed it, and I had to run an MD5 sum of the package or else it would fail. So I did that, and also for safe measures as well. So I did that, and then I ran the make command, got it all done, and the entire build of the base system took maybe an hour, if not. And that's because I set the compiler flags to run parallel. So it ran faster than running it on a single core. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And right now I'm doing the GUI and Xorg, things like that. And because I'm on NVIDIA, I am not going to have Wayland as my display manager. Not going to happen.
Understandable.
So, yeah. And unfortunately, in the make script for BLFS, they do not have NVIDIA by default. They only have Nuvu. So, because I play games, not happening. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, long story short, Xenix will now be based on LFS using Pacman, and that's where we're going forward. So hopefully this one works out, and I'll keep you guys posted as things progress forward.
Using my favorite package manager in the whole wide world, huh?
Yes, and
Going with it.
I wish it was something RPM based for you, Nate, but unfortunately it's not.
Well, I'm fine with basically every package manager out there except for
All right,
Pacman.
and also, just for you, my friend, I am going to be packaging KDE.
Okay.
Yes,
I understand
now
it's a pain in the butt to package.
Right. Well, I will be running the make command again after everything that I've picked initially will be done, and then I'll make packages for KDE for it.
Excellent.
And also, I will be aiming to do that. And also, I am doing XFC as well, just personal preference. But
Sure.
yeah, I'm not going to be doing every desktop under the sun. I'm just one guy. I can't do everything out there. That's not going to happen.
That makes sense. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably
Yeah.
only do one desktop. I wouldn't even do 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna do those 2 and call it good enough because, as I said, I'm just one person. I can't build packages for everything in their mothers.
Are you building them
Yeah.
locally?
On my laptop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then where do you store them from there?
I'm going to make a repository on GitHub and push them to there.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to package too much stuff into this because I don't want to, run into a size limit with GitHub and stuff like that. So I'm trying to make this as minimal as it can be. So yeah.
Excellent.
So anyway, yeah, I have no ETA when I'll have an ISO of this thing. Again, this is built from LFS, Linux from scratch. So there is, honest to God, no ETA on this right now.
Yep, makes sense. Well, it's if you have an itch to scratch, you got to scratch it, I guess. Just don't
Yeah, well, Linux from scratch is a very time-consuming project. Again, it never really ends. So yeah, this is something
I think
that is going to be an ongoing distro. I don't know when I'll have something to distribute to everybody, but I'll let you guys know.
I think that all Linux is an ongoing project because it's constantly moving. So
Yeah. Well, everything in Linux never has an end of life until the developer gives it that day. So, yeah.
Right.
Right. So anyway, yeah. With that, till next time.
Well, very cool. So, Adam, we're now in the closing time section. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to anything that we talked about thus far.
Nope.
Sweet. Nope. And Matt, I don't know if you had anything. Thank you for being here. I hope you had at least a decent time. But you're absolutely welcome to come back every week. You're already a lot more fun than another Matt I know. So thank you very much for being here. All right, well, it is closing time. Yep. Go ahead.
Hopefully he didn't fall asleep.
No, I'm still here. I was just saying, yeah, it's been interesting. I didn't really have much to contribute this time, but maybe next time I will.
It's all good. You hop in whenever you feel like you want to hop in, and it's just a bunch of technology enthusiasts hanging out and talking about tech stuff. So that's all it is. All right. So for last call, Dale, you have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast? Just your elevator pitch. Why it's awesome, why we all should listen.
Okay, well, it's in the current incarnation. It's me, Dale Miracle, and Moss Bliss, who is also of Mintcast fame, and he took the reins from Leo Chavez on Full Circle magazine.
Okay.
And you'll hear him on there. And what we do on Distro Hoppers Digest is there's no virtual machines, there's no USB live session 20-minute reviews. What we do is we have a whole team of laptops. I know Moss has got a couple. My other one is in my bedroom, but I got my Inspiron 13. I also got a Dell or an IBM ThinkPad 760. So we install things on real hardware, and we run the distro for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's largely dependent on my work schedule because I am a commercial truck driver, so I drive cross country. And I always say that the company's not a travel agency. So when I request that I want to be home on the 20th of March, they do their best to get me home around that time. So that's why sometimes the release schedule of the podcast varies from time to time. But our goal is and the criteria is it has to install and it has to update. If we can get past those hurdles, we will review it. If not, we have a section that Moss came up with, kind of tongue-in-cheek, called Beautiful Failures, where we talk about what happened and talk about why it didn't work or what the problems we had with it. And we can, if possible, give feedback back to the developer, or other people have written in to the show and given their feedback on how to fix things. So that's pretty much what the podcast is about. We do updates on anything we've learned from ones we've done in the past, and we also are looking for a third person again, because it originally started out with Tony Hughes, who was on Mintcast, and he stepped down from Mintcast for personal reasons. He's still our editor, an awesome editor, and he makes us sound really good. And so it was this me and Moss, and then Josh was a friend of mine, and we had him come on there, but he like I said, he graduated university. He's got his first IT job. He just got hired in from temp to hire. So he's now a full-fledged 40-hour-a-week IT person now. So he had to step away. So if you're interested in at least contributing, recording yourself on doing any reviews, it's audio only. We don't do video. We do Video Ninja when we do the recording. That's just so that we can interact with one another. But more details can be in the forthcoming episode, which should be released within the next couple of days.
Well, excellent.
And the website is distrohoppersdigest.blogspot.com.
And it will be in the show notes. Yes.
I said neat, not Nate.
Oh. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. That's confusing.
Yeah,
I think
we're on.
I agree. Very neat.
Yeah, we're on Telegram, Discord, MeWe, and I think that's it. And then our emails will be in the podcast episode.
Excellent. Well, very good. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here, and thank you for driving commercially, long hauling, because somebody's got to do it. And what do you drive, by the way? Is it a Peterbilt? Kentworth?
Actually, our company has standardized in the past couple of years on the Kenworth T680. And I actually just got a new to me truck because my last truck that I had, they traded off, had 638,000 miles.
I gotta ask, is there any Linux on board?
Well, I have a backpack that I take with me.
Okay.
I have my System 76 Pangolin with Pop! OS. I'm going to try to get Debian on here eventually. I just have to work out the getting the DKMS modules for all the firmware and stuff for it. Then I got this one here. That's my Dell Inspiron 13. I've got Archcraft on it. And then I have my Dell, or I keep on saying Dell. My brain's misfiring. I have a ThinkPad T460 that I use for a lot of my reviews. And since Moss got some new laptops, he's selling some of his, so I'm going to buy his T560 from him. So I'll be adding that to my testing fleet. I think I'll have to get another backpack or something because I already have this, plus a backpack that actually has 2 sleeves for laptops, plus other stuff.
Gotcha.
So yeah, cool. And unfortunately, the Qualcomm that they have in the truck is some type of, I'm not sure if it's what it is. It's some type of virtualized Windows. I'm not sure. I want to say Windows CE, but Windows CE is long dead. But it's probably some XP something or other.
I didn't think it was dead. I thought it was in the witness protection program.
Or the witless protection program.
Oh, again, thank you for being here. Tomorrow, I'm sure. I haven't checked. I probably should have asked. Steve's very own. He has a coffee clash Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. Something else out Pacific if you want to go that far. But check that out. So it's a laid back stream of Steve telling you about his Linux. He says he'll be on. No subject matter. It's
I think he now calls it the SLKC or something like that, or Sunday and I think coffee class. So SLCK, I think.
SLCK,
right?
Slick. It's a slick.
SLCK, yeah.
So no subject matter. It's whatever tickles my fancy in the morning. Probably some OBS stuff. So there you go. So he'll have some sort of topic that he kind of revolves around, sort of, but it strays around. And the best part about being a part of his stream is trolling Steve. That's the best part. I mean, I don't know about you. I know Eric. I know you like to troll Steve a little bit. I think Jinda likes to troll him. I know that Vince likes to troll him. I absolutely do. So it's fun. For whatever reason, Steve makes trolling him lots of fun. Yes, he says slick like Nate. I'm not sure what that means. Rick, you are not a Linux guru, and when are you doing these things? Are you still doing Saturday streams?
Yeah, I'm doing interviews for Saturday streams now, but this coming week I've got. I'm trying to do them first Saturday of each month, which would be next week, but because I got a surgery going on Wednesday, I didn't think I might be feeling good by then, so I delayed it, and I actually delayed it to March 8th. And I'm supposed to do a stream with an interview with Prophetic.
Oh, cool!
But I may have to delay that another week or two because of Holy Week or Orthodox Holy Week, which is what I'm an Orthodox Christian. So is kind of 2 weeks after Easter this year. So yeah, it makes it kind of hard to go to do that because I got Saturday morning stuff happening.
Right.
Palm Sunday and all that stuff. So
I got you. Makes sense.
So anyway, we have to delay it another till after that, probably.
Okay. Well, I know you have been sharing when you go live
yeah.
in the Telegram, so please keep doing that as well, so we can hop on and watch.
Alrighty.
Mark, you have a group of Linux enthusiasts that meet on Sundays. Is that happening tomorrow?
Yes, every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. The Atlanta Linux enthusiasts meet. It is an online meeting. We use Jitsi. Unfortunately, that is the only channel that we have. You don't have to install an app, as it runs just great through the browser. And again, people are welcome to join us. There is no set agenda except for to help others with their Linux problems, and then we'll talk about Linux and open source software. Yeah, anyone's welcome to join us. The link is in the YouTube chat, or you can go to al.org. I think our website's back up. And yeah, thanks, Nate.
Excellent.
That's good. I mean, you've had good experiences with Jitsi. That's really nice.
Yes, we have, and we've recently, had like about around 20 people in the Jitsi, and it just works great. We are using their public servers. It works great. Sometimes we get worldwide trolls that get in and kick us out, and that's a problem. But otherwise, Jitsi is great.
How long are y'all normally on there?
Again, from 3 to 6 U.S. Eastern, the entire time, and and that gives people, that gives everyone plenty of opportunity to ask their questions and get some help. They can share screen, and we can actually see them typing, or we can give them commands and help them edit things.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You said al.org. Okay.
ale.org. Our website is down right now. You can also find us on a Meetup. We're having a DNS issue with.
Okay.
Good times.
That's fine. That's really good.
Well, thank you very much. Linux User Space next episode is on pause for a little bit, but they're doing Raspberry Pi OS as their next distro. But you can check out any of their back catalog. It's good stuff. Linux User Space. I think it's .show. I should probably write that down. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We did an episode on tips for new Linux users. I have a website called cubeglate.com. I do stuff on there. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com, like Destination Linux, Sudo Show, or Hardware Addicts. Go to tuxdigital.com and check it out. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I think everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
All right, now, take it easy.
See you later.
Good night, everyone.
I'm sure it'll show up there, if not already. So what on the docket for today? No? Anything? Eric?
I actually, I'll tell you.
Yes, perfect.
I've been using.
So a little bit of background. I don't know if anybody, Eric, did you want to go into the background?
Yeah, sure.
I'm tired of my voice already.
Yeah, so sorry. I know it's here somewhere. There we go.
Did Rick, did you notice, did you have a very
I agree.
Was it a slow installation for you too?
Can you hear me?
Yes, but you are extremely overdriven.
Overdriven.
Yep.
Hold on. Silly microphone. How's that?
Still a little overdriven. I don't know if you like.
How's that?
That's better. There we go.
It's better.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Sorry, I missed the fine tuning earlier.
That is
So-
all right. And actually, I'm sorry I didn't welcome you, Rick and Ricky, for hopping in. And I think Prophetic had to sneak out on us, but thank you.
Yeah, well, let's see. Your question was, did I notice the? What was the question again?
You have to excuse my pausing because sometimes
No worries.
my body thinks that swallowing is more important than talking.
Eris,
One thing.
we'll see what
Sorry, Nate.
Eris has his hand up. I want to make sure I get before we drift away from whatever he was thinking. I did have some filler topic stuff about what, but we won't have time for that. So thank you all.
Party's over.
And Nate, you
All
forgot
right.
that we like to troll you about your love of GNOME.
You can do anything you like.